Mr. J. Christopher, protect the righteous with wisdom and strength.
So, piracy, right? So, here's what happens sometimes. Like you said, sometimes it's appropriate to send an email. Sometimes, hey, that may be better dealt with in a meeting, you know, Mr. John Doe with Mrs. Jane Doe, like, versus having to put it in writing. So, and we've seen in our business organizations get in a lot of trouble because too much was in writing or not enough was in writing, right? So we all have to kind of think about, you know, how to handle these situations, you know, with the right type of attention and taking into context how delicate these things can be, because there's a myriad of issues we can be dealing with. We didn't even get into like sexual harassment, age discrimination, gender bias, all these things and some of these things are protected classes under the Constitution. So again, for those that are watching and listening, be mindful of what you're putting in writing and be mindful of what you're not putting in writing. But the first thing to do is talk to a lawyer. So here's my question on piracy, right? So what about when the infringing party is a particular, you know, is really difficult to get to? Like they may be based in China, or it may be, you know, a mom and pop business that's gonna look really bad if we sue them and bring down a house on them. Like, you know, this is not to deal with piracy. This is another question, but I want to still deal with piracy. But like, what do you do in that situation in terms of strategy? Do you take those things into account? Because listen, I wouldn't even begin to tell you if someone infringed on my rights from China, how I would even go after them, let alone, you know, deal with that issue, right? Them pirating the show or them stealing some IP. So is that relevant? The region?
Well, I mean, where there's a will, there's a way, and when there's enough money, you can train fire almost anywhere around the globe that you need to. But everything is a cost-benefit analysis. I mean, are you going to go spend $100 grand, $200 grand, $300 grand to chase down somebody in China that's going to just pop up again like whack-a-mole after you spent your $300 grand? And what are you really trying to stop? Are you really trying to get there to be zero infringement? Is that your actual goal? Because you're going to lose that goal. You know, you're going to lose that battle. And yeah, sometimes you've got fans. Like you've got movies that are so successful that people have an emotional attachment to them. People infringe, and they're either innocent infringers or they're infringers in good faith. We get a lot of, you know, we want people to be attached to our films like La La Land or Hunger Games and Twilight. You know, you got fan bases that really love these products and love these films and love these properties. And these days with technology, anybody can go rip off a poster. They can design their own T-shirt. They can make their own cup. And a lot of them aren't making, you know, they're not running these things off in the garage and making hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, sometimes they're doing it just to show their love for the, you know, for the property. And you have to make that decision. Is like, is it worth even going after this person? You might get that PR blowback that we didn't want. Because sometimes the tools that we have at our disposal don't include a scalpel. Like sometimes it's all sledgehammers and broadswords. You know, you can't always deal delicately with folks when they're committing what's essentially, you know, a federal crime. You know, counterfeiting is a federal crime. You know, people don't think about it that way when they're designing their own La La Land T-shirts or their own Twilight, you know, sleeping bags. They don't realize that there's serious penalties here.
Federal offense.
Yeah,
I'm just curious, has anyone that you guys know of ever gone to prison for something like this? Federal prison because they've pirated DVD copies on the black market, and you know, like that's, you guys know, I don't know anyone personally. I'm just wondering if.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are certainly occasions where enforcement, criminal law enforcement gets involved and seizes property and does go after folks. Mm-hmm. And I think a word to the wise is you may be in China, you may be in Africa, you may be in Europe, but I also think as part of this global economy, we can find you too, right? I don't think there are too many places you can hide these days without someone being able to enforce their rights to try to stop you from doing what you're doing. I think a lot of the times the issue is going to be, as Bobby said, is it worth our time as a company to spend our resources stopping the one guy selling T-shirts on an island that we know does not make a lot of money?
Or even 125th Street in Holland, you know what I'm saying?
Or that too, right? And so that's a business decision that the company has made. I think that also leads me to think about a non-legal issue with a business decision. And I see a lot of companies just investing in things like their privacy, the encryption way, things before things go out, and how things can be distributed on the internet, and making it more difficult for people to infringe, making it more difficult for people to copy things, making it easier for people to be able to take and distribute what you have, or open up your movie that's encrypted in a certain way in a certain territory. I mean, it's becoming extremely sophisticated, and I think a lot of investment is going in on that end, in addition to the backside, which is the enforcement issues that we've been talking about.